Oh, I forgot I have to open my mouth to talk. I'm so sorry. Hello, true crimers. This is another compilation video. What was that? I don't know. These are always just the most uncomfortable things. Stop. Okay. Where was I? I wasn't really anywhere. This is another compilation video. More people missing. There's a couple of them out there in the world, one or two or millions. Again, TikTok videos. This is more videos. That's a number. That's how many videos are in this video. Videos within a video. This is basically Inception, but like without Leo and everything else. So yeah. Oh, so just enjoy it. Please subscribe. I'm always this way, literally. I don't know. So yeah, subscribe. I promise. I'm great. Just don't listen to everyone else. So, if you have any information about any of these missing persons, please contact the appropriate authorities for that location. If there are any updates on any of these cases, you please feel free to comment them below. Hopefully I'll see it so I can make an update video. There's just so many that I've done that I have never had time to actually go back and follow up on the majority of them. Some of them, yes. Majority of them, no, unfortunately. But people seem to just vanish and disappear into an endless void, and it's the craziest thing. So it would be really helpful to the families involved in these stories if you did have information and you could help them out. You can always report your information anonymously over the phone or by email, so please do if you know anything. Without further ado, here are a whole bunch more videos. Viewer discretion, this isn't Seinfeld, Mike, stop that, is advised. A man in Canada would jump out of a third-floor window, and then he was never seen again. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Lyndon Fuller. Viewer discretion is advised. Lyndon grew up in Berwick, Nova Scotia, which is in Canada. He was described as having a relatively normal life. His family had a farm, which he worked alongside his dad on the farm, and he was a very hard worker. Friends and family would say that he was someone that everyone would aspire to be just like. And his father would say that he was the type of son that any person would be proud to have. Lyndon was all about putting in the hard work in order to accomplish what he wanted to do. He was a star hockey player in high school, but Lyndon is also still a person. He had been going through some mental health issues. On November 23rd, 1988, he would be admitted into the Western Kings Memorial Hospital in Berwick, and that was due to a mild depression he was going through. Now, he didn't like hospitals, he didn't like being in them, which, I mean, I guess a lot of us really don't. But apparently hospitals especially kind of made him antsy, a little fidgety, so they gave him some medication to help calm him down. Around 6 p.m. on November 25th, 1988, he managed to discreetly leave the hospital without anyone knowing. But then someone who worked at the hospital recognized him and helped bring him back to the hospital. Lyndon was in this room here with this little tiny window. It was on the third floor of the hospital. And about an hour or so after he was brought back to his room, his parents had stepped out to go somewhere else. So there was only the nurse in the room. When all of a sudden at 7:45 p.m., he literally dove out head first out of the third floor window. He landed 29 feet below, or about 9 meters. So everyone rushed out to go get to him because obviously he would be injured. But when they got down there, Lyndon was gone. His foot impressions were there in the dirt, but he himself, nowhere to be seen. There was no blood or anything, so they believe he landed directly on his feet, like a cat, basically. Now, Lyndon was only wearing pajamas and he was barefoot when he did this, and it was a super cold night. So there is this possibility that he may have succumbed to the elements, but he's never been found. And that's the strangest thing, is that literally no one has seen him since he jumped out of that window. These are some age progression photos of what he might look like as of 2011 at least, but there's been no body found. No witnesses have said they've seen him. And they searched with a lot of police. They were very thorough. They looked everywhere. But here we are 34 years later, nothing. If you do have info, call this number. She was 50 feet from her home, and then she was gone. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Cherrie Mahan. Viewer discretion is advised. Cherrie was born on August 14th, 1976, and she lived in Cabot, Pennsylvania, with her mother and stepfather. Cherrie was conceived under traumatic circumstances as her mother was sexually assaulted, and that's how she became pregnant. Cherrie's biological father was never charged with any crime because, well, her mother wasn't believed. But, of course, that did not stop Cherrie's mom from absolutely adoring her. On the afternoon of February 22nd, 1985, Cherrie was on a bus from school. She arrived at her bus stop near her home around 4:05 p.m. Cherrie got off the bus with 3 other students. The bus stop was about 50 to 60 feet or so from her front door. Her stepfather walked outside the house, expecting to, welcome her in the home that day, but she never walked up to the door. Cherrie never made those 50 feet. Somewhere in those 50 feet, she was taken. She was immediately reported as missing, and witnesses from the bus, the children, would come forward to describe a van they saw in the area. They described a blue or green 1976 Dodge van. The children claimed they saw the van behind the bus as it was still driving on the road, and the van had stopped near where the bus was dropping Cherrie and the 3 other kids off. The van had this snow-capped mountain design on it with a skier going downhill. It was either painted on or was some kind of decal on the van. Now, this van may have absolutely nothing to do with her disappearance. This is just based on observations, and it's just a possible lead. But the owner of this van has never come forward. No one has ever come forward to say, yeah, that's my friend's van or my family member's van, which to me kind of makes it suspicious that this van is involved because it's a very unique van. It's very different looking. Roughly 30 or so years later, Cherrie's mom received an anonymous note. The note allegedly, because it has not been revealed, it allegedly reveals who took and who killed Cherrie Mahan. The note goes on to say something about, I hope you find peace when you find her body. Is the note legit? It's unknown. Is it a joke? A horrible joke? Again, it's unknown. I don't know if the stepfather was ever investigated, but if he was, nothing came of it because he wasn't ever charged with anything. And to this very day, Cherrie Mahan is still missing. Was this a kidnapping plot involving cryptocurrency, or was she just murdered? Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Anne-Elisabeth Hagen. Viewer discretion is advised. Anne was a 68-year-old woman who lived in the village of Fjellheimar, which was in Norway, which is just outside of Oslo. She was married to the clearly happy Tom Hagen. The 2 of them were high school sweethearts who got married when they were still teenagers. They would go on to have 3 children together. Tom Hagen, who kind of looks like a detective from a BBC crime show, well, he owned a very successful company called Elkraft, which is apparently some kind of electricity company. They were doing very well for themselves. Tom, made a lot of money. Tom was not someone to really ever brag about his wealth. He was very kind of introverted to a degree, whereas his wife was more of the outgoing, bubbly, just joyful type. They lived here in this quaint little home. And on the morning of October 31st, 2018, Tom would leave for work sometime around 9 o'clock in the morning. And then Anne would be home alone with their dog. At 9:14 a.m., Anne made a phone call to a family member of hers that lasted a few minutes. And that would end up being the very last time anyone ever heard from Anne again. Now, Tom was confirmed to be at work that morning because many cameras picked him up sometime shortly before 9:30 in the morning. He could very easily be traced to being at work, so. He would get home around 1:30 in the afternoon, and when he did, he noticed that Anne was no longer there. And their dog was locked in their bathroom, which was pretty unusual. Tom noted that it looked like a struggle had taken place in the bathroom, and that's where he also found some blood and a ransom note. The ransom note demanded $10 million to be paid out in cryptocurrency, and that if it wasn't paid out and if he contacted police, they would kill his wife and they would release the video of her murder. Tom managed to reach out to police in a very sneaky way. So police had heard from an electrician that was supposed to be doing some work at the house, and he arrived at 9:48 a.m., but no one answered the door. So they believe that between 9:14 a.m. and 9:48 a.m. is the window of time where she was likely taken. The alleged kidnappers, however, they never showed any proof of life. Police started looking into cameras around Tom's work. They noticed some unusual activity. While Tom was in the building, some unusual activity. This person would walk out of frame, then walk back and walk out of frame again. This is just another image of them. Then another person would kind of walk back and forth, sort of peering into the work complex. Then another person right here appeared to be looking in as well. Now, it could be absolutely nothing, or it could mean that Tom was being stalked at work to make sure that he wasn't going to interrupt whatever kidnapping was going to take place. It could also be that maybe this was set up to make it look like Tom's work was being stalked. A neighbor to the Hagens reported that they saw what looked like a gray SUV that sort of drove past the house a couple of times that morning. That this vehicle took a very unusual route to then get to the Hagen home. But they didn't see anyone, come out of the house and go into the car. Another neighbor said they saw what looked like two men fishing in a nearby lake that were looking directly at the Hagen house. Again, were these lookouts or just completely random and had nothing to do with anything? So at first, police were treating this as a kidnapping/ransom situation. But then the tables turned in June of 2019. Police would discover... Oh, my hair blends in with this. Police would discover that there was contact to the supposed ransom givers between Anne's family and them. The communication was all done through Bitcoin. The cryptocurrency account that was supposed to be the account that money was sent to, and by the way, Tom did send about $1 million to it. It was an untraceable account, apparently, meaning there was no way of identifying who exactly it was going to. So, police would come to the conclusion that this was likely all just set up. That this was all staged, possibly by Tom himself. That Anne was likely killed on the morning of October 31st, 2018. Whether it was planned or it was accidental. But then all the cryptocurrency stuff and the ransom stuff was just sort of set up to, make it look like something that it wasn't. At one point, Tom was arrested for the murder, but they had no physical evidence to connect him to anything. And especially, there was no body. Anne has yet to be found. There has never been any proof of life. There was no financial motive because Tom already had a whole bunch of money. He was released shortly after he was arrested because, again, they had nothing. And that is where this case stands. There is no more updates. At this point, Anne is likely deceased, and her family is still awaiting some form of closure. Was her husband involved? Was she truly kidnapped by a totally random group of people? Did she disappear on her own? Unfortunately, we don't know, and her case is still very much unsolved. 3 people go missing from the same home. 2 of them come back, 1 of them never seen again. The math ain't mathin' on this one. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Daniel Allen Price. Viewer discretion is advised. 29-year-old Danny Price lived in Lexington, North Carolina with a few friends. The friends being Christopher Burgess and Natasha Myers. Sometime around midnight on January 23, 2019, he would leave a voicemail for his mom. She would describe the voicemail as very long, but also very disturbing. The details of that voicemail, however, I don't have that information. Sometime around 1:15 in the morning, and then again at 1:40 in the morning, he would then text his girlfriend. And then he just told her, hey, I'm going to bed now. The next afternoon, she tried to get a hold of him, but he didn't answer his phone. He was not responding to any text messages from anyone. So his girlfriend would report him missing because it was very uncharacteristic of him to just vanish like this. His vehicle was still parked in the driveway. His wallet, his keys, all of his belongings were still in the house. But Danny was missing, but he was not the only one. So were his roommates, Christopher and Natasha. As a matter of fact, no one could get a hold of them on their phones either. All of their phones appeared to be powered off. So then their families report them missing. And then, a few days later, on January 27th, the two of them come back home. But Danny, he's not with them. They claimed they took a quick little trip over to Tennessee, and that's why they were gone. They also said they hadn't seen Danny since the morning of January 23rd, which is odd because a family member of Danny's would say that Chris called them and said that around 4 a.m. on the morning that he disappeared, the three of them got into the vehicle together, into Chris's vehicle. Chris then told the relative that Danny was complaining and arguing, so they let him out, and that Danny just walked off on his own. But then they gave the police a completely different story. They hadn't seen Danny. They would go on an impromptu trip. Danny wasn't there. Police asked them both to take a polygraph test. They said yes, but they never showed up. Later that same year, Chris, he would be charged with kidnapping a 12-year-old and also charged with assaulting that child. He also had other smaller charges as well. But in 2020, Chris would pass away. It was apparently drug-related. Natasha, she won't speak at all about the disappearance of Danny. Danny has these tattoos on his arm, and he is still missing, and foul play is likely. If you have info, she got home, parked in her garage, got out of her car, and was never seen again. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Veronica Jill Blumhorst. Viewer discretion is advised. Veronica was a 21-year-old who lived with her family in Mendota, Illinois. She was described as a very reserved, very just like homey person, not someone who really got out a whole lot. Her dad was a firefighter, her mom worked at a nursing home. The Blumhorst family was just considered like a really tight family. They loved each other very much, and they would always tell someone something if something was wrong. One of them wouldn't just get up unannounced and leave the house and never come back. At the time of this story, in 1990, she was dating a 22-year-old by the name of Jeff Viverka. Jeff had recently been in a motorcycle accident, and that actually caused him to have some severe memory issues. And this was like confirmed, medically diagnosed memory retention issues. It comes up. Veronica worked at a Super Value grocery store, which is very close to where she lived. In the early morning hours of September 20th, 1990, at approximately 1:07 a.m., Veronica would leave her work. She was actually scheduled to work later, but she said she was feeling sick, so she left early. She would then get into her Chevy Corsica and drive back to her house. She would park her car in their double garage. She would presumably get out of the vehicle, close the garage door, and from there, gone. She never entered the home. She was not witnessed by anyone leaving the area in another car or walking. Depending on what story you read, her belongings were not found in the car. There are some stories that said some of her belongings were found, But she only had $4 in her bank account. She had roughly $10 in cash in her wallet. She had nothing else with her, no clothing. There's just no way she just left on her own. After the family discovered her car but no Veronica, they would report her missing. Police would search her boyfriend's farm property that he lived on with his family. He told police that he wasn't sure what happened that night because of his memory issue. He said he thinks he might have called her, but he couldn't recall. He also claimed that Veronica said she was pregnant, but there's no verification of that. He even said it's entirely possible we met up that night, we got into a fight, and I possibly pushed her. But the cops couldn't take anything he was saying seriously due to his medically diagnosed memory issues. They found nothing on his property, by the way, and he has always maintained his innocence. They have no concrete evidence to say he had anything to do with her disappearance. Police would search by ground, by air, they would search the waters nearby, and they've never come across any of her belongings, they've never come across her remains. There has been no trace of Veronica ever found. Now, police have speculated that when she got home that night and parked her car in the garage and closed the garage door, it's entirely possible that someone else she knew pulled up to the house and she got into the car with them. But who that person could possibly be, police honestly do not know. Police absolutely believe that foul play is involved in this and that Veronica did not leave on her own accord. There is a ton of fields and farmlands in this area, and one would think that if someone were to dispose of a body in this type of area that it would have been found already. They did even use scent dogs to see if they could pick up anything. They did trace her scent from the garage of her home down to a nearby field, but then the scent was gone. And from 1990 until this very day, detectives who worked on her case have come and gone, they've retired. This is a case that kind of just sits on the top of a pile of cases that they just always go back to see if they could find anything new. Maybe they've missed something somewhere, but nothing has come up. This is another one of those crazy stories where a person just magically vanishes into thin air. But we know that's not possible, that doesn't happen. Veronica went somewhere in the early morning hours of September 20th, 1990. There is at least one person who knows where she went and knows where she is. That person is still around, if still alive, should come forward. Her family members have, died of natural causes over the years without ever knowing the story of what happened to her. The family that remains deserves to know the answers. If by chance you do have any information about her whereabouts, about what happened to her that night, you can reach out to the number I've placed on this screen. And maybe someday, somewhere, someone will finally help give this family the answers they deserve. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Heather Kullorn. Viewer discretion is advised. Heather was a 12-year-old girl who lived in St. Louis, Missouri. Now, in July of 1999, she had moved in with some family friends, friends of her mother. The reasons why, I'm not 100% sure. The friends, Dana Madden and Christopher Herbert, lived here in this apartment building. And I guess this was specifically located in Richmond Heights. Dana and Christopher had a 2-month-old baby girl, and while Heather was staying with them, she was actually essentially their babysitter. Heather was trying to take up more babysitting jobs because she wanted to save up money to buy stuff for herself, but also for Christmas time. On July 15th, 1999, Dana would leave the apartment sometime around 10 o'clock at night to go to her overnight job, which was at 7-Eleven. Christopher was also out of the apartment that night. He was not at a job, so I don't know exactly where he places himself. Therefore, Heather was home alone with the baby. Christopher would arrive back at his apartment around 4 o'clock in the morning, and he heard the sound of his baby crying. When he entered the apartment, the baby was fine, obviously just crying in her crib, but Heather was nowhere to be found. He searched the entire apartment, he searched all around the outside of the apartments, but there was no trace of her. Now, a neighbor would report saying that around 2 o'clock in the morning, they saw a man holding what looked to be a young girl in his arms. And there was also like a white comforter. Dana and Christopher would say that a white comforter was missing and it had like a floral pattern on it. So it was Heather and the comforter. Those were the two things that were gone. So Heather's parents were notified and the police were also notified right away. When police arrived at the apartment, they noticed that there was like a small blood stain on the couch. They were able to say that that blood likely came from Heather. Police would also uncover a methamphetamine lab in one of the apartment complex's garages. It was rumored that Christopher was part of the local drug world. He would even go on to say that, yes, he did cook meth. So what police have now theorized is that Heather may have stumbled into the garage and noticed this operation, and therefore she had to be silenced. Christopher was doing this with a man named Mike Mason. He was also questioned. Christopher noticed that the tow chains that were attached to Mike's vehicle were suddenly missing. He thinks they could have been used to weigh Heather's body down. Police say they have a suspect, but they've never released their name. This is what Heather might have looked like in 2012, but she is still missing. The image you are seeing behind me is the last known image of an Indiana college student who vanished off the face of the earth. Hello, true crimeers. This is the case of Lauren Spierer. Viewer discretion is advised. Lauren was a 20-year-old sophomore from Indiana University, and this was near Bloomington, Indiana. She was a very petite young woman. She was about 4'10" and weighed maybe about 90 pounds. On June 3rd, 2011, the semester was ending and she was looking to go out on a night of fun. That evening, she had some friends over at her apartments, the Smallwood apartment complex, to watch a basketball game. This was her boyfriend, Jesse Wolf. He was actually not at the apartment that night. According to him, he was at his apartment the entire evening. At around 12:30 in the morning, her friend, Jay Rosenbaum, was having another party over at his house. So Lauren would leave her apartment, and this was caught on CCTV, and this is the last known image of her, and she would go to his apartment. It was roughly 2 blocks away from where she lived. At that party, she would meet Jay's friend, Corey Rossman. Now, Jay's party allegedly had not just alcohol, but like hard drugs. Possibly like cocaine. After that, some of them decided to go to Kilroy's sports bar for more drinks. According to witnesses, they were only there for about 25 to 30 minutes, where Lauren accidentally left her cell phone there. And by the way, she went there only with Corey Rossman. The two of them then walked back to Lauren's apartment, where they allegedly saw a group of males who claimed to be friends of Lauren's boyfriend, Jesse. And then, allegedly, one of those men punched Corey in the face, and quite possibly let Jesse know that they saw Lauren with another guy. Then, Corey and Lauren apparently decided to go to Corey's apartment, which is right next to their friend Jay's apartment where they were at earlier. Once they arrive, and Lauren is clearly intoxicated, Jay says he insisted that she sleep on his couch, where then she allegedly says, "No, I'm not done partying." So around 4:30 or so in the morning, according to him, she leaves his apartment. And as far as anyone knows, Jay is the last person to ever see Lauren. At that point, after Lauren leaves that apartment, no one sees her again. She never made it back to her apartment. Her friends, her family, no one ever heard from her again. She, again, like so many people, just poofed, vanished into the wherever people go. Police uncovered CCTV footage of a white pickup truck, and it was seen very close to where Lauren was last seen. If you look closely in the back, it appears that someone's back there, but they've never gotten a hold of anyone who owns this truck. No one's ever come forward. Like I said earlier, Lauren was a very petite young woman. She could have very easily just been grabbed off the street. If anyone recognizes this white pickup truck by chance and remembers seeing it on June 3rd, 2011 in Bloomington, Indiana, you can let authorities know. At some point in this video, I will put up some contact information for you to report anything you may know about this case. And you can always do so anonymously. Her parents are just desperate to know what happened to their daughter. Nobody falls off the face of the earth like this. Nobody. It just doesn't happen. Somebody knows what happened to Lauren. Her parents believe that that group of friends that she was with that night knows more than what they're saying. As a matter of fact, that group of friends, most of them, they lawyered up immediately. They were told not to take lie detector tests that were administered by the local authorities. Instead, they apparently took a third-party lie detector test, which they claim they passed, but they have never released the results. There are theories that could suggest that group of friends at Lauren's apartment complex may have told her boyfriend, and her boyfriend may have got upset. The Bloomington police, they cannot confirm or not confirm his alibi. There's no apparently cell phone data to prove he was where he says he was, but also nothing to disprove it. So, does Jay know anything? He was apparently the last person to see Lauren alive. Or is this the work of someone completely random? Is this image anything at all? Is that even a person in the back of that truck? No one knows for sure. But the reality is, someone does know something for sure. Someone's not telling all of the truth. Lauren has got to be out there somewhere, and obviously at this point, foul play likely happened. If you know anything at all, please contact the Bloomington Police Department. Again, their number is up here. Please help Lauren's family find some level of closure. A Kansas wife and mother would go missing, but would not be reported missing for 8 months. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Angela Green. Viewer discretion is advised. Angela Gua was a native of China, and she moved to the States sometime around 2000. She would then meet Jeffrey Green. The two of them would get married and end up having a child together. Their daughter, Ellie, seemed to live a pretty sheltered life from what I can see. Like Ellie's aunt would say that it was just a very odd childhood and that her parents were essentially her only friends. And she became extremely trusting of both of them, obviously. By 2019, Ellie's grown up, she's gone to college, and then she was even traveling abroad. On June 19th, 2019, she came home. That night, she had a bit of an argument with her mom, and that's because Angela wanted Ellie to stay and hang out with the parents. But Ellie wanted to go see her friends and her boyfriend, and Angela got kind of mad, so she kicked Ellie out. That would be the last time Ellie ever saw her mother again. A few days later, Ellie's father, Jeff, would send her a text message that her mother is now in a psychiatric hospital, saying that she had some kind of mental breakdown in a parking lot and she was forcibly moved to a hospital. But he was extremely vague. He never said exactly where the hospital was, other than it was just down south somewhere. He gave no details. A few weeks after that, Jeff would then call Ellie again and say, "Your mother has died of a stroke at the hospital." Ellie, of course, being in shock, was like, oh my god. Again, Jeff was being very vague. He wouldn't provide details. He said, please don't tell your mother's side of the family yet. I'm not going to have a service for her. Now, given Ellie's very odd childhood, she didn't question her father. She just agreed and she grieved on her own. Now, at some point, Angela's side of the family would find out what they claimed happened. So Angela's sister Michelle asked Ellie, can you please get us the death certificate? So Ellie went to go get that. But when she got to the Office of Vital Statistics in Kansas, they had no death certificate for Angela Green. No record of her death whatsoever. And Ellie was like, okay, I'm very confused now. So when she went to talk to her father, Jeff, he was extremely vague again. He said, okay, well, she's not dead, but she ran away. When pressed on that, he said, I don't know. He would not give any answers. So Ellie goes to the police and says, I need to report my mother missing. And this is 8 months after her mother actually vanished. Jeff even said, oh yeah, it was the night that you guys had a fight. I haven't seen her since then. Okay, what? So now police are going to Jeff and they're saying, hey bud, what happened to your wife? What does Jeff do? He hands him his defense attorney's card and says, I will not be answering your questions. And to this very day, he has not answered a single question to police or even now the FBI since they've become involved. The frustrating part is they legally cannot force him to answer their questions. They can't get a warrant to arrest him or anything like that until they have proof that any foul play has occurred. But obviously police and now the FBI are like, okay, you changed your story on what happened to your wife. Again, sorry, not answering your questions. Newspapers have reached out to him. Sorry, not answering your questions. Hey, Jeff, not sure if you know, but that is exactly what guilty people do. Not to mention his completely casual, flippant attitude about his missing wife. He just doesn't seem to care. The fact that when he lied, said, I don't want you to tell her family, there won't be any service for her. Yeah, hi, guilty, guilty, guilty. Now, police and FBI were eventually able to get warrants to search the house, as well as other properties that Jeff owns. They brought in cadaver dogs, the works, but they came up with nothing. Police asked neighbors and say, hey, when's the last time you guys have seen Angela? And they said, well, it's been a really long time. We just assumed she went back to China. Okay. She had lived in the same house for 20 years. She had the same neighbors for roughly 20 years. She barely ever even left her home. But yeah, they just assumed, probably went back to China. That's why we haven't seen her. I tell you, people need more true crime mindsets going on every day of their lives. Now, Ellie was able to obtain some soil samples that she gave to private investigators, and these soil samples came from a property that Jeff had given Ellie. According to those investigators, 3 separate cadaver dogs hit on human remains from those soil samples. But when digging up at those properties, when police got those warrants, they found nothing. You know, to me, it's obvious. I mean, Jeff has basically painted himself as a guilty person. He at least knows where his wife is. Maybe he didn't end her life. Maybe she stormed off and he's just super embarrassed about it. But then why has literally no one seen her? Why has her family not heard from her? Her debit cards, credit cards, nothing, cell phone, nothing has been used. Angela Green fell off the grid on June 19th, 2019. Why? How? This guy knows something. If you're not guilty, speak up. Where on earth is Angela Green? If you have information, please call this number. A mother in Idaho would go missing, and it's very likely she may have been found, but authorities are saying, no, it's not her. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Patricia Otto. Viewer discretion is advised. Patricia, who went by Patty, was a 24-year-old mother of 2 young daughters living in Lewiston, Idaho. Patty was described as a go-getter and someone who just wanted to get along with everyone. She was absolutely a people pleaser, but more than anything on earth, she loved her 2 daughters. She was married to this man, Ralph Otto, who was the father of both her girls. From what I can see, Patty and Ralph had a very rocky marriage. It seemed to go back and forth a lot. There was even a point where Patty was trying to file for divorce, but they decided to try reconciling instead. It's also believed that he may have been abusive towards her. On September 2nd, 1976, Ralph and Patty would get into an argument. And according to Ralph, Patty just stormed out of the house and took off. Except she just left everything behind. Purse, wallet, keys, her car, her daughters. And from that day moving forward, she was never seen again. Ralph never reported her missing. Patty was reported missing finally about a month after she disappeared by her sister, because her sister hadn't known she disappeared. When police got involved, they found her wedding ring inside a pocket of Ralph's clothing. They also discovered that Patty had left on her own before, but she came back always. So police did have that idea of, well, maybe she just went away on her own longer than usual. Maybe she'll come back soon. No. Now, one of the daughters was a witness that night, but she was only 3 years old. She said that she's had dreams and these vague memories of her father grabbing her mother by the throat and dragging her. Did she witness her father kill her mother? It's not known for sure. Ralph would later be convicted of hiring a hitman to kill one of the investigators on this case. And then he was released after 4 years on a technicality. 2 years later, he dies. On August 27, 1978, about 3 hours away from Lewiston, the body of a Jane Doe that authorities have named Finley Creek Jane Doe was found buried in a shallow grave. They made this composite drawing of her. Patty's family can't help but wonder if these are very similar. She was even wearing the same clothing Patty was wearing. One of the family members even superimposed the skull over Patty's face. It's nearly a match. Again, here is another one. But authorities are saying no, it's not her. Okay, why? This is still unsolved. Another day, another video, another mystery. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case dubbed the McDonald's Boys Disappearance. Viewer discretion is advised. Pictured here is To Hong Huat and Ke Chin An. And they were two 12-year-old friends who lived in Singapore. They attended Owen Primary School, which used to be here in this building. They had reportedly gone to school on May 14th, 1986, but then they would vanish. Sometime around 1 o'clock that afternoon, their teacher was doing roll call, but these two boys, they never responded. Their backpacks were sitting on their chairs at their desk, but the two friends were no-shows. Now, something unusual about that morning was that Hong Huat, who normally would walk to school with his mother, he asked if he could walk on his own that day, or more specifically, to meet his friend and walk with him to school. She's like, yeah, it's fine, it's not that long of a walk, go ahead. Now, the boys were seen at school that morning, but after lunch and all that, no one knows where they went. The teacher notified both sets of parents right away, and a search began. So they started searching the school grounds, they searched every single room, they searched the perimeter of the building, everywhere nearby, but there were no signs of them. The only trace of them was their backpacks, and nothing inside the backpacks gave any kind of hint as to where they might be. The families would put out reward after reward, slightly increasing it each time, but no one came forward. Several months later, on September 3rd, 1986, the mother of Hong Huat would get a very disturbing phone call. There was a man on the other end speaking in a language called Hokkien, and allegedly said that you're never going to see your son again. He's gone. Don't have any hope that you'll ever see him again. It turns out the family of Chi An also got the same phone call just like a half an hour prior. Who that man was? No one knows. Were they even legit? Who knows? A lot of times, unfortunately, people like to prank the families in these situations. Now, why are they called the McDonald's Boys? This is because several McDonald's in that area would begin to offer a $100,000 reward for any information that would lead to finding the two boys. A total of 16 restaurants did this. Unfortunately, even though the effort was great, nothing still came forward. There were rumors that Hong Huat's biological father, who was no longer in the picture, may have kidnapped the two boys. They speculate that maybe he took them to Malaysia and they grew up to be like delinquents. Another rumor was that they were brought into a child trafficking ring. Some say the boys were killed in a sacrifice. But honestly, no one knows. There's no leads. These two boys literally vanished. This photo is the last known image of a woman who has disappeared in Poland. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Iwona Wieczorek. Viewer discretion is advised. I do want to apologize in advance. I feel like I don't have all of the details on this one. Many of the stories are not written in English, but I think I have the gist of it. So in 2010, Iwona was a 19-year-old living in Gdańsk, which is in Poland. Now, obviously, she was young, and of course, she just loved to party. She loved going out with friends, hanging out at clubs. She was also on the verge of a trip to Spain, so she had a whole lot of stuff to look forward to. But on the evening of July 17th, 2010, Iwona would go out with some friends. One of them was her best friend, Adria, who happened to live in the same apartment complex as her. They first went over to the house of one of their friends who was having a big party that night. After some time, Iwona wanted to go to a club. So her and Adria and then 3 male friends of theirs, who they didn't know that well, they all left the house party and went to a club. Now, this is where I'm not sure if I have all of the details, but when they were at the club, there was some sort of argument amongst this little group of friends, but I don't know what the fight was about. And according to some places where I've read, they're not even sure if there was even an argument. But regardless, Iwona, she stormed out of the club on her own. This is CCTV footage from just outside that club, and right here is Iwona leaving. Then there's other cameras down the run that pick her up. This is her walking down the seaside, and this is where you can tell she's carrying something in her hands, which you'll see is her shoes. She was wearing high heels at the time, and she told her friends that I'm gonna walk back to my apartment. This is like 3-4 miles away from the club. Walking that distance in heels, ladies, I'm sure isn't very fun. This is the last known image that was caught on CCTV. Does anything jump out to you? Anything at all? Well, first of all, you can see that she is now barefoot and she is holding a pair of shoes. Who's that? This is a zoomed in photo of a man who has a towel or a jacket draped over his shoulder. He's either barefoot himself or wearing flip-flops, and he just happens to be in the same image of a woman who then disappeared. Because Iwona never got home, and she would be reported missing later that day, but police would not start investigating it for a week. They said that this man had nothing to do with it, but they haven't said how they know that. But that's it. She's gone. She's vanished. She's fallen off the face of the earth. There's been no sightings of her. No one's heard from her. There's no suspects in this at all. There's no signs of foul play, and this is just unsolved. This may be one of the most infamous missing persons photos in recent memory. And to this very day, it's still a mystery. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Andrew Gosden. Viewer discretion is advised. Andrew was born on July 10th, 1993 in South Yorkshire, England. He has an older sister named Charlotte, and the family is just a normal, happy family. You know, the parents took really great care of the kids. There is no history of abuse, anything like that. One of the cooler aspects, I think, of their parents were that the parents were both very religious, but they said that they would never impose that on their kids. So it was just a very cool, very accepting, very loving household. Now, Andrew was considered a very gifted student. He's incredibly intelligent. You know, he is a straight A student. He never misses a day of school. His education seemed to be extremely important to him. That being said, he's also considered to be kind of standoffish, very shy, very reserved. He kind of disliked to do his school studies and then play on his PSP or... On the 14th of September 2007, Andrew would do something very unusual. He ditched school. Way out of character for him. At approximately 8:05 in the morning, he was seen walking across Westfield Park, where he would then go to a local garage where there was an ATM, and he would withdraw £200 from the ATM, which was almost all the money he had. Andrew was then seen on a neighbor's CCTV camera returning to his home. At 8:30 a.m., he was then seen leaving his home again, and he was now wearing his backpack. He was wearing a Slipknot t-shirt, which is a band. He had on a pair of jeans and his normal glasses. He would then go to the Doncaster railway station where he purchased a one-way ticket to London, which he was seen boarding that train at 9:35 a.m., and then at approximately 11:20 a.m., he was seen leaving King's Cross Station. He was captured on CCTV, and this is the last known image of Andrew Gosden. It's reported that he went from King's Cross Station and was then seen in this Pizza Hut, and after that sighting, there has been no credible sightings of him since. He was reported missing the following day, and his family has been searching for him ever since. There has been no more activity in his bank account. He did not like having cell phones, so he didn't have one. They tried using the PSP information to see if they could locate him that way, but that didn't work. There was no search history on a computer at home because he had no computer in his bedroom because, again, he didn't really like them. They have absolutely no idea why Andrew left. It's possible he was taken by a pedophile ring, he could have ran away, but there's nothing more. Hello, true crimeers. We're going to Ireland for our next story. Pardon my attempt at an accent. This is the case of Fiona Sinnott. Viewer discretion is advised. On February 9th, 1998, 19-year-old Fiona, who was a mother of an 11-month-old baby, her name was Emma, Well, she was hanging out at a pub called Butler's Pub, and this was in Broadway in Wexford, Ireland. She was there with some friends, and from what I understand, a boyfriend or ex-boyfriend. She was there until about midnight, possibly up to 12:30. That part's not exactly clear. But she was seen leaving the pub, and then she was never seen again. Now, it absolutely needs to be noted that Fiona was a wonderful mother, and she absolutely adored Emma, and she was really excited because she was planning her one-year birthday party. She was also excited because one of her sisters was about to turn 21. So for her to just, pick up and leave all of that, that's not something she would do. Because she, like so many people I've talked about in this type of situation, has just seemed to fall off the face of the earth completely. Now, shortly after she was last seen the pub, somewhere around Keisha Cross Junction, there was witnesses who saw a man and a woman arguing. Now, where that man and woman were arguing, not too many feet away from them, were two what appeared to be teenage or early 20-year-old boys. Now, it is not clear if that man and woman who were arguing were Fiona and possibly her boyfriend or ex-boyfriend, and no one is necessarily suggesting that the two teenage boys had anything to do with her disappearance, but the local Irish Gardaí were just wanting to talk to all of those people, but none of them have ever come forward. Now, it's entirely possible that those people just don't remember being in that situation, especially if they hadn't even known about Fiona's disappearance at the time. So they may not have come forward just not knowing, you know what I mean? But the Gardaí are saying, hey, if you were those people and you do remember that evening, please come forward. From 1998 to 2005, her case was considered just a missing persons case, but in 2005, it was officially labeled a homicide. They recently went back to investigate the home where Fiona lived, but they did not come up with anything significant. They have searched everywhere. They have searched by land, they have searched the waters, and they have just never come up with anything. They have even dug up certain locations where they've gotten tips of where her body could be, but again, they've never found her remains. Sadly, her father passed away not knowing what happened to his daughter. And then one of her sisters, who fought so hard to find her, also passed away. While she was pregnant with Emma, it was revealed through medical records that she was going through domestic abuse. But the Gardaí says she never pressed charges. Did that same man kill her? It's unknown. If you have information, please call this number. Hello, true crimerers. It is time for a lesser-known missing person. At 8 a.m. on May 3rd, 2002, 7-year-old Alexis Patterson was dropped off at her school by her stepfather, Laurent Bourgeois. Her fellow first-grade classmates saw her playing on the playground before classes, and also they claimed to see her playing on the playground after school. But Alexis never went to any of her classes. When students saw her on the playgrounds before and after school, they claimed that she was crying. You see, before school, Alexis got into a fight with her mother, Iwona. Alexis was supposed to bring a little box of cupcakes for her classmates, but because of this fight, her mother said no. Alexis never ran away from home. She had a perfect attendance at school, but since that day on May 2nd, 2002, Alexis has not been seen ever since. Police searched the entire school as well as the entire area around the school, including near her home. Her birth father was ruled out because he was in prison at the time. He was released from prison not too long after this all happened, but he was cleared of any wrongdoing or involvement in this. Her mother Iwona and stepfather Laurent were both very vehemently questioned, and police said that they don't believe they had anything to do with her disappearance. Or at the very least, their past history, including crimes they've committed because they had a record, weren't involved in this situation at all. However, her stepfather Laurent did fail a polygraph test. Me personally, I've seen enough on polygraph tests to know they are not remotely reliable, so... It should be noted, though, that Laurent did end up having a domestic dispute with Iwona, her mother. Criminal charges were filed, but then eventually they were dropped. And Laurent actually passed away this year at the age of 52 of an apparent drug overdose. Police do say that foul play was absolutely involved in this case. Her case is still labeled a missing persons, and she has not been declared dead. This is an age progression photo of her that was done back in 2019 of what she might look like around this time. At the time of her disappearance, she was 7 years old, she was 3'8" and weighed 42 pounds. She was wearing a red hoodie nylon jacket with gray stripes down each sleeve. They believe the shirt she was wearing was either a light purple blouse or a blue shirt with horizontal stripes on it, light blue jeans, blue and white high-top Nikes, and she had little sunflower earrings in both ears. And she had a pink Barbie backpack. Her hair was styled into 2 French braids that were pulled together into 1 ponytail. She's right-handed, and she also goes by Lexi and also Pi. If you have any information, please contact the Milwaukee Police Department at 414-935-7401. Hopefully soon her family can get closure. This is the disappearance of Ray Gricar. Gricar was a district attorney in Centre County, Pennsylvania from 1985 until 2005. In 2005, he decided not to run for re-election. This also happened to be the same year he would disappear. At around 11:30 a.m. on April 15th, 2005, Gricar would call his girlfriend, Patty Forticola, and he told her, "Hey, I'm going on a little road trip. I'll be back later this evening." When Gricar failed to come home that evening, Forticola reported him missing. The following day, in an antique store parking lot in Lewisburg, police would find his signature red Mini Cooper. His cell phone was inside, but none of his other belongings were. No wallet, no laptop, his keys were gone. There weren't any signs of foul play though, however. They would bring in sniffer dogs, which indicated he might have gotten into another vehicle. When investigators told his family where the car was found, they thought it a bit odd. They said it bore resemblances to where his brother had left his car when he ended his own life back in 1996, near the Susquehanna River. And speaking of the Susquehanna River, on July 30th, fishermen would end up finding Gricar's laptop in wonderful mint condition. It was, however, missing the hard drive. But 2 months later, they would find the hard drive about 100 yards away from where they found the laptop. However, the hard drive was so destroyed, so damaged, that not even the FBI or the Secret Service could do anything to recover anything on it. They, of course, also checked all of his credit and debit cards, his bank account information, and nothing had ever been used since his disappearance. And nothing within those accounts indicated any sort of foul play or anything like that. It was revealed that shortly before his disappearance, his personal computer was used at home, where his internet search history showed how to destroy a hard drive, how to fry a hard drive, water damage to a notebook computer. In June of 2011, Gricar's daughter Laura petitioned Centre County to declare her father deceased, which they did. He was declared dead in absentia on July 25th, 2011. The very next day, police arrested a man who allegedly looked very much like Gricar, but after fingerprinting him, they discovered they were not the same person. The theories they have is that he ended his own life like his brother. Some people believe he made himself disappear to start a new life. He had even shown interest in a case that had that exact same premise, and some people think foul play. He had recent involvement in busting a heroin ring, where another attorney had been murdered a few years before his disappearance for similar involvement. But to this day, nothing. This is the disappearance of Johnny Gosch. Oshkosh Bagosh. Shut the f***, Mike, it's a missing kid. John Gosch was born on November 12, 1969, in West Des Moines, Iowa. On September 5th, 1982, when Johnny was 12 years old, between the hours of 6 a.m. and 7 a.m., he would disappear without a trace while doing his paper delivery route. Now, people who worked for the Des Moines Register claim they saw Johnny Gosch that morning picking up his papers for delivery. A neighborhood man named Mike said he saw Johnny Gosch talking to a stocky-built man who was driving a blue two-tone Ford Fairmont, and it had Nebraska plates. The neighbor couldn't hear anything being said because he was actually just seeing all this from inside his house looking out his window. The same neighbor, when he saw Johnny Gosch walk a different direction, he claims he saw another man following Johnny. Now, another neighbor named John Rossi also claims to see a man in a blue vehicle talking to Johnny that same morning. Now, Johnny's parents, John and Noreen Gosch, they phoned police immediately that morning to report their son is missing, but Noreen would say, and later on in her book, that the police wouldn't do anything for 72 hours because that was the standard practice. The police initially said that Johnny was likely just a runaway, but then they would later go on to say no, he was likely kidnapped, but they had no proof, no evidence, or anything of the sort. According to Noreen, a few months later, she was told that her son was spotted in Oklahoma. when a young boy about Johnny's age was screaming for help but then was dragged away by two men. But it was never verified. They've hired private investigators over the years, but they've come up with absolutely nothing. Now, Johnny, along with Juanita Estevez, were one of the very first people to be featured on the side of a milk carton. Do they still do this? I don't think they do this still, right? On August 12, 1984, 13-year-old Eugene Martin disappeared under the exact same circumstances. He was even a paperboy. March 29, 1986. Oh, the day I turned 1 year old. 13-year-old Mark James Allen Warren told his parents he was walking to his friend's house, but he never made it there, and he has not been seen since. Hi, I'm a little guy right here. So, you've got three young boys around the same age disappear in the same area, around the same time. These are the age progression photos for all of them, should they still be alive today. But this case has ran completely ice cold. Now, Noreen truly believes her son was kidnapped by some sort of organized pedophilia ring. She's even testified in Senate hearings about this topic. At 2:30 a.m. on March 27, 1997, Noreen claims a 27-year-old man came to her door, accompanied by an unidentified man claiming he was her son. She said he needed permission to speak by the other man, but then they left and she's never seen him since. She also claims she's gotten creepy photographs, but the photos were debunked, and that's it. Hello, true crimerers. This is the disappearance of Michael Dunahee. Viewer discretion's advised. Michael was born on May 12, 1986, in Victoria, British Columbia, upstairs in Canada. On March 24, 1991, when he was 4 years old, he and his family were at Blanchard Park Elementary School. His mother, Crystal, was actually playing flag football, and she was there for practice. 4-year-old Michael was last seen wearing a blue hooded jacket, a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles shirt, badass, rugby pants, and blue sneakers. The family got to the school somewhere around noon that day, and almost immediately Michael wanted to go to the playground. The playground was sort of in close proximity to where the field was that his mom was practicing, but not necessarily like directly in eyesight. Crystal would say that her gut was telling her that something didn't feel right about letting him go to the park by himself, but she reluctantly let him go over there. She told him, "Do not leave the park, wait for Daddy to come find you." But when his father Bruce got to the playground, Michael was not there. He had vanished. Everyone who was there, either at practice or just on the school grounds, they all began searching for him right away. And then, of course, police were called immediately. And then Canada had one of their largest searches in history. The police didn't mess around. They said, yep, this was an abduction. Someone took him. This was an all hands on deck. All police stations in the area were on alert about this. They were interviewing any known sex offenders in the area. They interviewed every single person that was at the park that day. The crazy part is that this happened on a playground and he was just snatched right up, but not one person witnessed it. Not one. They interviewed the family members. They interviewed just any criminals they knew that were around in that area at the time. But nothing. They got absolutely nothing. This was an age projection photo of what Michael would look like at an older age. And then here is a man that people said looked just like it. Holy shit, those look like twins. But unfortunately, DNA proved that he was not the missing young man. In 2009, a man in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, police would find a missing persons poster of Michael in the home of 62-year-old Vernon Seats. And the police were there because the man had confessed to a psychiatrist that he killed a young boy in 1959, just when he was 12 years old. And then he said he knew of another child killing. But then Seats was found dead a little later on. But nothing else connected him to the disappearance of Michael. In 2020, a TikToker claimed he found the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles shirt that Michael was wearing that day submerged in water. But then the family who saw it said that's not the exact one. His case remains open, and he's been missing for 30 years and 3 months. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Jodi Huisentruit. Jodi was an anchor on a morning show called Daybreak in Mason City, Iowa. On the afternoon of June 26, 1995, Jodi was participating in a golf tournament, and that's according to her friend, John Van Cise. After the golf tournament, they went to John's house and they watched a birthday video that he had planned for her. At 4 a.m. on June 27, 1995, Jodi is late for work, which is extremely unusual for her. So Jodi's producer, Amy Coons, gave Jodi's apartment a call. And Jodi actually answered the phone. She said, "Oh my god, I overslept. I'm headed to the studio right now." But then 6 a.m. rolled along and Jodi still wasn't at work. And then 7 a.m. Still nothing. So her co-workers then filed a police report. So the police head straight to her apartment and they go knock on her door and there's no answer. The police were told that Jodi drove a red Mazda Miata, so they went to the parking lot looking for that. And they found it. Now, Jodi wasn't in the car, she wasn't near the car at all, but police would describe the scene next to her Miata as a sign of a struggle. As a matter of fact, they found her red high heel next to the car. They found the key to the vehicle next to the car, and the key was bent. Her hairdryer was even by the car. And this is probably because she was in a hurry, so she was going to, I guess, blow dry her hair either at the studio or I don't know. And they would also show signs that something or someone was dragged. So police, of course, started to interview her neighbors. And her neighbors would say that there were screams heard that morning. On top of that, one neighbor said they saw this white van, or a van that looks just like this, with its headlights on, parked in the parking lot, around the same time as they heard the screams. But the owner of this van never came forward and it was never identified. There was no DNA or anything like that left near the car, but there was a palm print left on the car. There was a little, body of water behind her apartment, so the police, they started combing through that and nothing. Her friend, Scott Van Sice, would come forward and say, I may have been the last one to see her alive. Van Sice would say that Jodi was like a daughter to him. Police would confirm that he was given a polygraph and he passed. They also issued a search warrant of his vehicles in 2017, but I can't find any information that says what came of it, but he has never been arrested. Former college basketball player Tony Jackson was also a suspect. He's currently in prison for life for several other sexual assaults, but there was never any physical evidence connecting him to Jodi. In 2001, Jodi was officially declared dead. Her case is still open. She's been missing for 25 years, 11 months, and 28 days. What happened to Jodi Huisentruit is a mystery. This is the case of Karlie Guse. Karlie was born on May 13th, 2002. Fast forwarding to 2018, Karlie and her two younger brothers would move with her father and her stepmother. And they would do so to a city called Chalfont, California. I guess it's near Yosemite Park. Shortly before this case takes place, Karlie here would be suspended from school because she was caught using the old Mary J. You know what I mean? This is TikTok. Most of the young people have no idea what I just said. The devil's lettuce! She was starting to get really bad grades in school. She was virtually forced into counseling. Her friends would say that she was acting kind of erratic and a little strange. Allegedly, she was concerned that someone was tracking her through her cell phone, but some people denied her ever having this behavior, and other people said she definitely had this behavior. So who knows? On October 12th, 2018, Karlie asked permission to go to the school football game. She was given permission, but she was lying. There was actually a party planned that night, and she was going to go there with her boyfriend. Around 8:30 p.m. that evening, Karlie would call her stepmom, Melissa, and say, "You need to pick me up." Apparently, partygoers said that she was acting completely bizarre. They said they couldn't console her or anything. She was just erratic as hell. So Karlie on the phone said, come get me. I'm booking it down Dixon Lane. Hurry, I'm scared." Melissa would end up finding Karlie completely away from where she was supposed to be, using her cell phone to guide her, and she was running. When she pulled up to Karlie jumped in the car and said she was scared. Melissa said Karlie looked like a ghost, and she kept insisting that the car was going to kill her, and she kept changing seats in the car. Melissa even recorded Karlie for about 8 minutes, and she said she was so scared because she might get killed in her sleep. Melissa was concerned, but she calmed her down, and around 3 a.m. they both went to bed. 5:48 a.m. on October 13th, 2018, Melissa wakes up, and there's Karlie next to her. Around 7:30 a.m., Melissa wakes up again. Karlie's gone. The front door is ajar. They drove around for hours and couldn't find her, so they called the authorities. The home had no forced entry. There was no signs of foul play or a struggle. She texted a friend somewhere before she disappeared that the Mary Jane she smoked was probably laced with something. But there's no indication a crime was committed. Karlie just vanished. and she's never been seen or heard from. And that's it. She's just gone. Maybe she was kidnapped? No one knows. It's weird. Hello, true crimerers. This is a missing persons case, and it is the case of Paris Hopson. Viewer discretion is advised. Paris was born in 1993 in Massillon, Ohio. Eventually, she would graduate from Cleveland State University. She aspired to be a writer, and everyone said she had a really bright future ahead of her. On June 17, 2017, her and her family experienced an unfortunate tragedy. Her 23-year-old brother, Perry Hopson Jr., was involved in a car accident. It was unfortunately a hit-and-run driver, and he would be hospitalized, and unfortunately he would pass away due to the injuries he got in April of 2018. The hit-and-run driver, the one responsible for killing Perry, has never been caught. That person fled the scene. But this weighed heavily on Paris and her entire family. A lot of people who knew her said that she became super preoccupied with trying to find out who did this to her brother. Other than that, everything else was going great for her. She wasn't someone who ever did drugs. She wasn't an alcoholic. There weren't any problematic people in her life. Other than the story with her brother, everything was going great. She lived in Columbus, Ohio with her mother, and for Christmas of 2019, they would go to Massillon, Ohio to spend the holidays with her grandparents. On Christmas during the festivities, her family would say she seemed to be kind of on edge. A little anxious, maybe distracted. She was pacing back and forth. According to one website, she was, dating a man who apparently was trying to alienate her from her family. So around 2:30 p.m. on Christmas Day 2019, she decided to leave the house and take a walk. She just told everyone that she needed to clear her head. She left her phone, her wallet, her keys, everything was there at the home. She was observed walking towards Shriver Park, which was on 3rd Street, but then she never came back home. And to this very day, she has yet to be seen again. There has been no sightings of her anywhere. So she was reported missing, and police began, questioning people in the area. One of the neighbors said that just before she walked into Shriver Park, she approached him, wished him a Merry Christmas, gave him a hug. Everything seemed fine, and then he observed her walk towards the park. Her car was found parked at her grandparents' home. Her cell phone was actually plugged into the charger inside the vehicle, giving all indications, of course, that she planned to come back. The last text message she sent was to a pastor just inquiring about the Christmas service. And since she disappeared, there has been no activity on her social media accounts, credit cards, nothing. I don't know if the man she was dating has been questioned. She has her name and a pair of lips tattooed on her chest, a rose tattoo on her foot, and if you know anything, please contact this number. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of the disappearance of Amy Bradley. March 21st, 1998. Amy Bradley and her family, her parents, Ron and Iva, and her brother Brad, they hopped aboard a cruise vessel called Rhapsody of the Seas. The family was having a wonderful, relaxing, fun time. On March 24th, 1998, Amy was having a good time with the ship's band. One of the band members, named Alistair Douglas, who goes by the name Yellow, he said he was with Amy until about 1 o'clock in the morning. And then her papa said he saw Amy sleeping on the balcony of their room around 5:15 in the morning. He kind of just opened his eyes a little bit and just saw her out there. He went back to bed. But then he woke up again at 6 o'clock in the morning, and Amy was no longer on the balcony. The father thought it was kind of weird. Now, the ship had left Aruba, and they were en route to Curacao. And Amy was nowhere to be found on this ship. Literally nowhere. I mean, they really searched top to bottom this ship, and she was nowhere to be found. They actually chartered a boat as well to search the seas, where the Rhapsody of the Seas was sailing, and still nothing. Now, it should be known that Amy was a lifeguard. She was trained. In fact, she was known as being a really great swimmer. The ship's officials would say that there were no signs that she had jumped overboard, whether on purpose to end her own life or by accident. I don't know how they determined that there was no evidence. It doesn't seem to me like you would be able to really find that evidence unless someone witnessed it. So I guess they mean there was no witnesses to her jumping over? They searched for 4 days. Nothing. So there were sightings of Amy Bradley twice in Curacao. Once in 98 and another time in 99. 2 different people said they saw her on a beach. And one of the witnesses says, I am 100% certain that that was Amy Bradley. She even said she saw the same tattoo, that Amy had, which was a Tasmanian devil spinning a basketball, and then another tattoo of a sunflower on her lower back. A member of the United States Navy claimed to have seen her in 1999. He said he saw her at a brothel and that she asked him for help. She said she was being held against her will. In 2005, another witness said they saw Amy at a department store. She said she saw Amy enter a restroom with 3 strange men, pictured here. And the witness said that they threatened Amy. The witness was able to talk to the girl, and the girl said her name was Amy, and she needed help. By the time the police got there, she was gone. And this was in Barbados, by the way. Amy Bradley has been missing for 23 years, 3 months, and 30 days. What happened to Amy Bradley? Hello, true crimerers. This is the missing persons case of Marc Fullerton. Marc was born on February 25th, 1985, so he would be 36 years old today. Marc was last seen on June 2nd, 2020 by his girlfriend, Ashley Palmer, whose photograph I cannot find. He was with her at her home in Braggadocio, Missouri. So what Ashley claims is that Marc was feeling ill for the past couple of days, and then she began to feel ill. So on the evening of June 2nd, 2020, she felt like she had to vomit, so she went to the bathroom to throw up. When she left the bathroom, she went straight to bed. Didn't wake up until the early afternoon of the following day on June 3rd. And this is when she noticed that Marc was not there. Marc had left everything at the house. Ashley claims that he had left barefoot and only wearing a pair of black shorts. He left his keys, his wallet, his cell phone. He recently had all of his teeth removed and replaced with dentures. His dentures were also left at home. Now, I actually have false teeth. My top front 5 teeth are fake. I would never in a million years ever leave them behind because you don't have them in. I also wouldn't leave my home without my cell phone, at least. None of us would. So Marc's family is obviously very suspicious of Ashley's story. Marc had been talking to his mother on the phone the previous day on June 2nd, and he had told her that there were some issues going on with him and his girlfriend. He wasn't happy, there were problems, he wasn't sure it was going to last. Ashley also waited almost a full day to even tell his family that he was missing. Now, these next couple images I got off of YouTuber Amber Howe's video of him, so credit goes to her for these. So, police searched the apartment that they were living in, and it looks like some of the blinds have been eaten by a tiger. Jesus. It also looks like Ashley does not know how to clean a goddamn thing. They found bottles of bleach in the kitchen, where we normally store our bleach on top of the stove. They found a roll of duct tape on her table. Good Lord, woman, hire a maid! Anyone, Mary Poppins, someone. You need some magic in your life to clean this shit up. Now, allegedly, there were drops of blood throughout her home as well. Some of it did match the blood of Ashley because she claimed that she was going through her little time of the month. I don't know. But some of the drops of blood also matched Marc. Not enough to say, yeah, there was definitely foul play and he was murdered in this house. He did live there with her, so it's plausible why his blood might be there. Marc Fullerton is 5'11". He has blue eyes, shaved brown hair, and both of his ears are pierced. He also has skull ring tattoos on both arms. If you have any information, please call this number. Hello, true crimerers. This is the disappearance of Jennifer Kesse. She was born on May 20th, 1981 in New Jersey. And by 2003, she would be a graduate of the University of Central Florida. By 2006, she had been working at Central Florida Investments Timeshare. And this was in the city of Ocoee, Florida. Sheesh, I don't know if I said that right. I think I did. I looked up the pronunciation. A week before January 23rd, 2006, Jennifer had vacationed with her boyfriend. And they had actually gone to St. Croix, which is in the Virgin Islands. By the way, her boyfriend's name is Rob Allen. They actually had a long-distance relationship. Technically, he lived about 3 hours away from her. He lived in Fort Lauderdale. But they essentially visited each other every single weekend. They arrived back home on January 22nd, 2006, and that night, which was a Sunday, she decided to stay the night at his house. And then the following morning, she left to go to work. The very last time Jennifer was seen was around 6 p.m. on January 23rd, 2006, when she left her work. She talked to her dad on the phone roughly around 6:15, and then several hours later, she had made a phone call around 10 p.m. to her boyfriend. The very next morning, she never texted her boyfriend back, which is something that they would do all the time, every time before she'd go to work. And then the morning after that, no text messages. In fact, he hadn't gotten anything from her. When he tried calling, it went straight to voicemail. While this was all happening, or not happening, Jennifer was also not attending work, which again is extremely unusual for her. Her parents went to her place of residence, they noticed her car was gone, and they went into her actual home, and there was nothing out of place, nothing foul play seemed to have happened. She was just gone. They did notice a wet towel on the ground and a change of clothes, which indicates that she was at one point getting ready to go to work. So they reported her missing, and almost right away the Orlando Police Department began a search. Using volunteers, they searched by foot, they searched by air, they even checked the ocean. Around 12 p.m. on January 24th, 2006, police uncovered CCTV footage of someone unknown parking Jennifer's car. And this was at an apartment complex that had no relation to Jennifer or her boyfriend or her family, which led to the discovery of her abandoned vehicle. This is when police uncover more CCTV footage of a man, well, they think a man, not a real man anyway, walking away from where her car was parked. Unfortunately, his face cannot be seen. Even with extreme enhancements, his face never actually shows up. And this is all they have of him. At one point, a $1 million reward was offered, but nothing has come up. Very few leads, and Jennifer has never been found. She's currently on the FBI's missing list. What happened to Jennifer? Hello, true crimerers. My name is Mike, and today we are going to talk about the case of the Springfield 3. Please make sure to like and subscribe. Number 15. Wait, no. This story takes place in Springfield, Missouri, yeah. On June 6, 1992, teenagers Suzanne Streeter and Stacy McCall graduated from Kickapoo High School. Kickapoo? I went to Slap-a-Piss High School. I'm sorry, this is stupid. That night, the two teenage girls went to several graduation parties. The last time anyone saw them was around 2 o'clock in the morning, so this will be officially now on June 7th, 1992. After all the parties, the two girls decided to go back to Susie's house, owned by Cheryl Levitt, Susie's mother, who was also a cosmetologist. And then, gone. Now, the last time Cheryl Levitt was heard from was about 11:15 p.m. on June 6th, and this was through a phone call to a friend. On the morning of June 7th, 1992, a friend of the girls came to the house. The front door was open, the family dog was inside, unattended, and all of the girls' belongings were left behind. So all three women, their purses were still in the house. Their keys, their wallets, all of it. Their cars, still in the driveway. The porch light had a glass lampshade around it, but that was shattered. The light bulb was still intact and operational. Their bedrooms seemed normal. There is no signs of foul play. When the girl's friend, Janelle Kirby, was in the house, the phone rang and she picked it up. She said a very strange man was on the other line and giving her sexual innuendos. But no one knows who this man is. He then called back, doing the same exact thing, and then they hung up on him again. There was reportedly a very bizarre message left on the answering machine, but the person who heard it deleted it. So now no one knows exactly what it was. So about 16 hours after the girls were last seen, they were officially reported missing to the police. There were reports of a very strange, creepy van going through the neighborhood around the time they supposedly disappeared, but it's never been identified and no one's come forward to say it's theirs. Sadly, the police, when they got there, said the crime scene was contaminated by a whole bunch of people. Friends and family that had gone in the house to see what was going on. They said the beds did appear to have been slept in that night, so the disappearance could have happened sometime early in the morning. In 1997, a convicted killer claimed he knows that they're dead, but said their bodies will never be found. It's been unsolved for 29 years. What happened to the Springfield Three? This is the disappearance of 6-year-old Timothy Pitzen. Timothy was born on October 18th, 2004 in Aurora, Illinois. His father was James Pitzen, and his mother was Amy Joan Marie Fry Pitzen. Jesus. On May 11th, 2011, Timothy's dad dropped him off at his elementary school in the morning. But sometime around 8:10 in the morning, his mother checked him out of school because of some family emergency, but it will later turn out the emergency wasn't a real thing. And she also did not tell her husband that she was doing this. Around 10 o'clock in the morning, with Timothy still with her, she dropped her vehicle off at an auto shop. Then, one of the auto shop people actually drove the mother and son to the Brookfield Zoo. They would return at 3 p.m. to get the vehicle. On May 12, 2011, the mother and son would be caught on CCTV footage pictured here, checking into the Kalahari Resort in Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin. Again, not in any communication with the father whatsoever. They were caught on several angles of the camera. It looks like Timothy is in perfectly good health, doesn't seem to be in distress, but this footage is the last time anyone would ever see Timothy again. On May 13th, 2011, she would call several family members saying that me and Timothy are safe. They would trace those calls to Sterling, Illinois. Yet she has still not contacted her husband, who allegedly they were discussing divorce before all of this happened. Some of the family members claimed they heard Timothy talking in the background of these calls saying he was hungry, but again seemed fine. On May 13th at 7:25 p.m., and then later at 8 p.m., she would be caught on CCTV footage without Timothy. She was seen at a Family Dollar store and then a Sullivan food store. She then checked into a hotel in Rockford, Illinois, with no child with her, according to witnesses. Trigger warning, about to talk about self-harm for a second. Okay. The next morning, maids would find her deceased in her room. She had slashed her own wrists. She also OD'd on antihistamines. She left a note apologizing. She said Timothy was with people that would keep him safe, but that you would never find him. If anyone has him, they should probably come forward. Authorities found a large amount of Timothy's blood in her vehicle, but no body. But that could have been from a nosebleed he had. This is what he would look like now. Will he ever be found? Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Emma Fillipoff. Emma was born on January 6, 1986 in Perth, Canada, to parents James and Shelley Fillipoff. In the fall of 2011, Emma had ventured over to Victoria, Canada, and that's when she took seasonal employment at a seafood restaurant in Victoria called Redfish Bluefish. On Halloween of 2012, she left the job because, again, it was just seasonal. It was believed that at that point she was planning to move back to Perth. She had hired a tow truck company on November 21st, which was meant to transport her vehicle, which was a Mazda. And she was planning to move it to the Chateau Victoria parking garage. It was wondered where Emma was actually staying when she was in Victoria because she never actually told her family. It was found out later that she was actually staying at a women's shelter called the Sandy Merriman House. The last time that Emma Fillipoff would ever be seen by anyone again was on November 28, 2012. She was seen outside of the Empress Hotel in Victoria. Damn, that's pretty. She was observed talking to a couple of police officers, and she was walking around barefoot. The officers determined she's not in any kind of distress, she doesn't need help, so they let her be. And then after that, no one would see her again. Around 11 p.m. on November 28th, after a concerning phone call that Shelley Fillipoff had with her daughter on the phone, Shelley flew to Victoria and went straight to the Sandy Merriman house. The last thing that Emma had ever said to Shelley was, "I don't know how I can face you," whatever that means. By the time she arrived, Emma was gone, and then Emma was reported missing. When combing through CCTV footage around the time that she disappeared, police would find that she walked into the Victoria YMCA repeatedly. She went in, she went out, she went in, she went out. This is an image of Emma walking into the YMCA. Witnesses would say it looked like she was trying to avoid someone, but no one got any information out of her. Even stranger, just hours before she disappeared on November 28th, CCTV footage caught her going into a 7-Eleven. She would purchase a prepaid $200 credit card that she never used. She also purchased a prepaid cell phone that she never activated. It becomes creepier when you see this footage of her looking out the window as if she is trying to make sure someone isn't there, trying to avoid someone again. But again, no one knows who she was trying to avoid. This is the last known footage of her. Police have gone through hundreds of leads but have never come up with anything. The Sandy Merriman staff said that when she was there, she did require some medical assistance, but she never appeared to be in danger. In 2014, this unknown man entered a building, ripped down an Emma Fillipoff's missing sign, claimed she was his girlfriend and that she hated her parents, but he's never come forward. Where is Emma? Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of a woman who went missing in Iceland. In August of 2012, there were a group of tourists who were on a bus sightseeing all over Iceland. The tour bus stopped at a location known as Eldgja Canyon. They were there for a little while, sightseeing, taking pictures, the works. When this particular stop was over, everyone reboarded the bus. Some of the passengers noticed that there was someone missing, a woman. So they began kind of just looking around to see if they could find her. About an hour later, the tour bus driver would finally inform the police that they had a missing passenger, fearing that maybe she had fallen somewhere in the canyon and is injured, or quite possibly something worse. About 50 to 60 people began doing a grid search for her. People were searching by vehicle, they were searching on foot, they were looking everywhere, no stone unturned. And then the Coast Guard became involved. They were searching for hours and hours and hours, and then around 3 o'clock in the morning, the woman was found. And she was found in her own search party. She was searching for herself. This is not a joke, this is a real story. Apparently what happened was this particular woman, when she was walking around the canyon, she decided she needed a change of clothes, so she changed into a new outfit. Now, she wasn't with any, family or friends, so when it came time to reboard the tour bus, no one recognized her because she was wearing different clothes, and because no one really knew who she actually was, I guess they didn't recognize her face. So, she was actually searching out there on foot for her own missing self. Apparently, the tour bus driver did not have a head count of people, because if they did, they would know that everyone was there. Now, they also didn't know the missing woman's name, so this is added to the confusion as to why she never realized. How? How is this possible? Again, this isn't a joke case. This actually happened. By far the strangest missing persons case I've ever covered. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Teekah Lewis. Teekah was 2 years old, and on January 23rd, 1999, in Tacoma, Washington, she would vanish from a bowling alley. Around a dozen or so of Teekah's family members went to the Frontier Lanes in Tacoma that night. It was loud, there were people cheering, there was the crashing of pins falling down. It was a very busy night. Teekah's mother, Teresa English, was following her daughter around the bowling alley because, she was an active little 2-year-old. And she really enjoyed going over to, the flashiness and the lights of the arcade area, which I remember being a child and loving this little area of the bowling alley. Somewhere around 10:15 that evening, Teekah went to sit down at the driver's seat of that Cruisin' World race car game, pretending to drive the car, and her mother, Teresa, turned around for just a few moments, literally just a few seconds, to check on one of her other children. And when she turned back around and walked over to the car, Teekah was gone. Obviously, Teresa was concerned, but she wasn't in panic mode yet. She searched the arcade area, she searched all the lanes, she went into the women's room, she wasn't in there, and then panic definitely set in. Teresa and her family were looking all over the bowling alley. There was also an exit door within feet of where Teekah was last seen, so she bolted out that door to see if she could find her anywhere. But she was nowhere to be seen. After they exhaustively searched the entire bowling alley and outside, they called the Tacoma Police Department. They reported Teekah missing, and the search began. The Tacoma police got the FBI involved really quickly, and they genuinely searched for this girl. They searched through the woods more than once. They went door to door around the neighborhoods nearby more than once, but Teekah was still never found. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children got involved. They helped with the search. Again, nothing. Police would question all of the people inside the bowling alley, some of them more than one time. A woman walking into the bowling alley right around the time Teekah went missing said she was nearly hit by a vehicle that was just screaming out of the parking lot. She described it as an 80s, maybe 90s, dark-colored Grand Am. The car went so fast that she wasn't even able to see who was driving or see or hear any children inside. A teenage boy would also come forward saying he saw a very suspicious man walking after another child in the bowling alley that same night, but he thought maybe that was just their father. The person was in their mid-30s, had shoulder-length hair, had a mustache, a large nose, and a pockmarked face. He was wearing jeans and a blue flannel shirt. Still nothing. Shortly before Teekah went missing, police would find out there were reports of other children being followed in bowling alleys in the same area by a man who possibly drove a dark-colored Pontiac Grand Am, but that lead turned into nothing. As of this day, she is still missing. This is what she would look like, if alive. On December 23rd, 1974, in Fort Worth, Texas, 17-year-old Rachel Trelisa, 14-year-old Renee Wilson, and 9-year-old Julie Ann Mosley had taken a little trip to a shopping center. Rachel and Renee were good friends, and Julie was the younger sister of Renee's boyfriend. His name was Terry Mosley. Rachel Trelisa, even though she was 17, had a husband, and his name was Tommy. Julie begged the older teenage girls if she can go with them because she just wanted to get out of the house. And, she had no one to play with that day. So Julie's mom begrudgingly let her join them. And that would be the last time that any of the family members had any conversations with them. So the girls went to Seminary South Shopping Center. Many people saw them shopping in there that day, and everything seemed to be normal. The girls were expected home sometime around 4. Because one of them had a Christmas party to go to that night, and she was really, really looking forward to it. But she never got home. In fact, none of them did. Their families knew something was up. Something wasn't right. So around 6 p.m. that evening, they went to the mall themselves to go looking for the girls. In the upper parking lot by Sears, they would find Rachel's 1972 Oldsmobile 98. This is not the exact one. This is just a picture I found. In the vehicle were items they had purchased, so they knew they had gotten back to their car. But then they just vanished? The Fort Worth, Texas Missing Persons Bureau, they began investigating this pretty quickly. Soon after that, Tommy Trelisa, Rachel's husband, received this note, allegedly from Rachel, and it read, "I know I'm going to catch it, but we had to get away. We're going to Houston. See you in about a week. The car is in Sears upper lot. Love, Rachel." Now, the letter was addressed to Thomas, but Rachel only ever referred to him as Tommy. They also noticed that Rachel's name in the upper corner was at one point misspelled, and then it was drawn over to correct. Handwriting experts had investigated this over and over, and they always had inconclusive results. The families knew that Rachel did not write this letter. A witness came forward that said they saw the 3 girls being forced into a yellow pickup truck outside of Buddy's supermarket, but that was never verified. Another police officer who was a security guard at the time said the 3 girls were with another security guard that night. Again, not verified. They have searched the lakes nearby, they've pulled up cars, but it's all led to dead ends. They are just gone. How, who, and why? Very weird. Hello, true crimerers. I am back. Again. I'll try to behave this time. So let's get right back into it. This is the case of Dail Dinwiddie. In 1992, Dail was a 23-year-old living with her parents and her 16-year-old brother, Drew. She had actually just recently moved back to her parents' house after graduating college, where she actually got her art degree. And she was set to begin school at University of South Carolina, which unfortunately would not get to come to fruition for Dail. This is a photo with Dail and her younger brother. On occasion, Dail would babysit for a neighborhood family, On September 24th, 1992, she was supposed to pick up the boy she babysat, John Parker, at a bus stop when he got off of school. But earlier that morning, something had already gone amiss. Around 6:15 that morning, Dail's father, Dan, would go to her room to see why she hadn't come out yet, but she wasn't in her room. In fact, she wasn't anywhere. Her bed was made, so he came to the conclusion that she never actually slept in her room that night. And actually, neither of Dail's parents had even heard from her since the night before. On September 23rd, 1992, Dail had gone with some friends to a U2 concert at Williams-Brice Stadium in South Carolina. According to her friends, they had a great time, and then they went to the Five Points district and they went to a bar called Jungle Jim's, which is now closed. The concert ended at 11:15 p.m., and they went to the bar right afterwards. At 1 a.m. that morning, Dail's friends couldn't find her, and so they actually just went home. This is because they assumed that Dail already got a ride home from someone else. Remember, this is before the era of cell phones, so don't judge her friends. Her house was actually just a few blocks away, so it's reasonable too that her parents maybe picked her up. Obviously they didn't. Around 1:15 that morning, Dail spoke to a bouncer who told her that, oh, your friends left. And the last time that she was ever seen was at 1:30 a.m. by that same bouncer when he witnessed her walking north down Hardin Street. And this was toward the Green and Hardin Street intersection. The bouncer said she was alone and she looked rushed. So now on February 24th, by 8 a.m., Dail's parents file a missing persons report. Police begin investigating the area around the bar. They check all the way down the street she was seen walking down, and they found nothing. And they never would. Police would speculate that she probably got into a car with someone she knew, since no one heard any altercations, no screaming, that she probably trusted this person, and that was it for her. This was an age progression photo of her in 2012. There is still a $20,000 reward, but to this day, she is still missing.